Up your nose is exactly where it's supposed to go.
Yeah, music makes it so blessed. Okay, so
But you missed a good time on Tuesday.
oh, I did.
Manny and I,
It was just you two?
what?
Just you?
Just us two. And his red dot, the red, if you know this, I apologize. I don't know how much you know. So, but the red dot is an optic. You know, every
helps you
gun
aim.
has iron sights.
Okay,
Those are the small sights that come with the either the rifle or the handgun. And those are built into it.
right.
But you can add an optic that you look through and it's electronic.
Okay,
It doesn't have to be electronic, scope, it's a scope,
right.
but it doesn't have any power. It's just one power. The same as
Interesting.
not magnified at all. But it has a red dot in it that's projected through the window that you look. And if you align that red dot correctly, then where that dot is where the bullet's gonna go.
Right,
But you have to zero, it's called zeroing the scope
because it
or
could
the red
get
dot. So
disaligned
that,
or
what?
it has to be aligned, obviously. It has to.
Yeah, so it points in the right direction. So we did that, and he got it aligned at 100 yards. And a red dot is not, there's no magnification. So 100 yards is a football field long.
Wow.
It's hard to see your target without magnification. And he was doing really well. And we had a spotting scope that I rented. So, which had a lot of magnification.
Mhm.
So you could look at your target with the spotting scope and see it, 20 times the size with the magnification.
Is it something that you could align yourself, or you need some sort of machine? How do you kind of just test
It
the
has
gun and
dials on it. A dial on the right side for windage, which is right and left.
right?
Windage because the wind blows it right or left. And a dial on the top of it for elevation and down. So you shoot at the target and you look through the spotting scope to see where you hit, and then you
Oh,
adjust.
wow.
And he adjusted it and he was hitting at 100 yards.
He was in the army, so he must have gotten some sort of, I don't know what he did in the army, but he must have gotten some sort of
Said he
training.
was a technician.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
he had a little bit of training
right. I'm
with the
sure
rifle,
some
but
basic.
yeah, but his job was as a technician. I don't know exactly what, but so he wasn't really familiar with zeroing the red dot. So we went through it. I zeroed a lot of scopes.
Actually,
Then I zeroed one.
Tuesday, I usually kind of flexible with my time, but Tuesday, just this Tuesday, we started a new thing. My wife has the bakery, so we started selling babkas at the farmer's market.
Selling what?
Babkas.
What is
It's
that?
like a cake. It's like a,
Oh, okay. Wow.
so that was a,
At the
that was
farmer's,
nice.
where's the farmer's market?
There's two. There's one here on right near the police station, like right in that plaza there, like where Kaiser is.
On Madera.
No, right here on Capo Canyon.
Oh, okay, where the city center is.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's a newer one, right near the hospital on Sycamore. It's just a newer
That's
farmer's
where my
market.
wife was. When she got bit by
Oh,
the
wow.
dog.
So right across the street on Tuesday, they have like a big parking lot there. So on Tuesdays they have a
Oh,
farmer's market. The other one on Tapo Canyon is on Fridays.
okay. But anyway, my impression is you would probably enjoy a handgun, learning a handgun over a rifle.
Yeah, rifle's a little too big for me.
It's wieldy, yeah, for inside of a house or close proximity. You're
Yeah.
defending yourself.
Can I stand up to this?
You're, how do you carry a rifle?
Right.
Everywhere you go,
Yeah, it's
right? So, yeah, the handgun's much more practical.
Okay, yeah, it's coffee. Want some? So, so Rosh Hashanah is all about the shofar.
Yom Kippur too, right?
Yom Kippur, not as much. We blow the shofar at the end, right? But kind of like if you look in the Torah, so the Torah won't say anything about the shofar on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the day of atonement. Yom Kippur is the day of fasting. The shofar is something that is more like a custom. It's something that was added later.
Even on Rosh Hashanah?
So Rosh Hashanah, on the other hand, Rosh Hashanah, that's the entire thing of Rosh Hashanah. If you look in the Torah, and we're going to talk about that, so the Torah doesn't really describe what Rosh Hashanah is, other than it's the day of blowing the shofar. That's all it is.
Oh, okay.
So that's really the entire central theme.
Not to, I'll forget if I don't ask now, but
Okay.
not to focus on Yom Kippur. But Yom Kippur, I think, tell me if I'm right, it corresponds to when the Jews were at the base of Sinai and they built the golden calf and ultimately they did teshuva
Right,
and God forgave them.
right.
And that's the association with Yom Kippur. Okay, I just
Right.
wanted to.
It was basically it was 3 periods of 40 days. Right. So the giving of the Torah was Shavuos, which was back a couple of months ago. So that happens, the 6th day of Sivan. The next morning, Moses went up the mountain for 40 days, kind of to receive the rest of the Torah. And then when he came down at the end of those 40 days, that's when the golden calf was. And that's
And he got angry.
right. And then on the Jewish calendar, that's the 17th of Tammuz, which later on ended up also being a sad day for other sad things that happened on that day, and it's a fast day.
Oh, really?
We fast on that day.
Okay,
In the morning after that, Moses went up the mountain for another 40 days to ask for forgiveness.
right.
When he came down, it was the beginning of the month of Elul. God finally agreed, and then we went back up again for another the third time 40 days, and that's when he actually worked it out and reconnected. And the last period of 40 days was when God really forgave the Jews and really was like was really happy again.
Okay.
So that's why this entire period really, it's not only Yom Kippur, it starts from
Thank you.
the beginning of Elul all the way to Yom Kippur is 40 days.
The beginning of Elul, the month of Elul
Right.
to Yom Kippur is 40 days.
Yeah, because
40 keeps reappearing.
yeah, for some reason it was Moses the process was every time he went up the mountain was 40 days that he was there. So
Okay,
right, so the entire 40 days every year is a special time. And of course Yom Kippur is the last day, so that's when Moses actually came down with the second tablets. So Yom Kippur is like
Like
kind
a
of
set of tablets?
right.
Okay, all right.
So that's kind of like the climax, but it starts from the okay. So yeah, so that's actually I was gonna talk about this last week, but it's good that we're getting into this.
Oh, okay, all right.
We just talk about Yom Kippur. We know kind of what Yom Kippur is. We know the history. We know how what it's coming from. Every other holiday, also, we have some sort of explanation. The Torah itself tells us, what it is, where it's coming from, like what's it doing. Passover is commemorating the Exodus, of course, of Egypt. That's when it happened. That's when we left Egypt. Shavuos is commemorating the receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai. Sukkot is a little bit more complicated, but that's celebrating. It's celebrating commemorating the fact that God took care of us in the desert. He kind of made us these huts out of clouds.
Oh, okay.
So we celebrate that. So it's not maybe it's a little bit more of a discussion why it's that time of the year, but the Torah describes something. It tells us you celebrate this holiday because this and this, because of the huts. However, if you look at Rosh Hashanah, the Torah doesn't tell us much. The Torah just says, it's on the first day of the 7th month, it should be Rosh Hashanah, and it should be a day of blowing. Let me pull up the actual quote. Keeping her busy. Thank you.
You're giving it back to me.
Okay, so here's a quote. I'm going to read it. It's one verse. Okay, in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, it should be a day of sounding for you. That's the entire description of Rosh Hashanah. It should be a day of sounding. So we're supposed to make some sort of sound. That's all you get from the Torah.
Okay. But how is it associated with the birthday of the world?
Oh, okay, very good. So that is a tradition. We always knew that Adam was created. So actually, right, there's 6 days of creation. So the 6th day of creation was when Adam was created,
The last day of creation.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
and that is Rosh Hashanah. So really, creation started 5 days before Rosh Hashanah. We commemorate Rosh Hashanah from the creation of man, of Adam.
So it's not really the birthday of the world, but it's the 6th day after well.
Right.
What's the birthday how is it defined? The birthday of, it's on the 6th day of creation?
It's a good question. It's a good question. So this also, I wanted to speak about this last week. Right in the prayer book on Rosh Hashanah, we actually say today is the birthday of the world. And the way we just said, it's not, right? It's not the birthday of the world.
It's the 6th day of creation.
Right. It's the birthday of man. It's not the birthday of the world.
Yeah.
How does that work? So the idea is that the entire purpose of creation really is for man. And every year, God kind of decides if he's going to create the world again. If it's worth it for him, if it's following its plan. And that's up to us. We have to make sure that the world is following God's plan. No one else is doing that. That's our responsibility. So kind of the whole world is really dependent on our birthday.
Okay.
No, it's kind of the whole world.
Wait, our birth, you're talking about the Jewish people, right?
Yeah. Well,
So,
technically everyone,
but the
by
6th
extension.
day of creation wasn't the day that Jews were created. Adam was not Jewish.
Right. I think that the distinction of Jew and non-Jew didn't really exist until Abraham. Kind of Adam had kind of the same mission of a Jew, to bring God into the world. It says that as soon as he was created, he got up there and he called, he made God king over, he brought God into the world.
So then my question is, was God's original plan? God knows everything. God knows the future. So the question kind of violates that, but it was, as you say, it was God's original, or it was for Adam to do what is the mission of the Jews today. So it kind of sounds like God's original plan was that Adam do it, but it didn't work out that way. I say that because God ended up making Abraham the first Jew and a nation from that. So it sounds like God, however God does these things, changed his plans.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I never even thought about that. But yeah, technically speaking, God always wanted, he wanted this mission. He wanted Jewish people. So why was there no Jewish people until Abraham, until whatever it was, 2,000 years into creation, or 1,500 years?
Right, yeah.
That's a good question.
Well,
I haven't thought about that.
Because he had Adam, but he screwed up.
I mean, he did good things as well. Yeah. I don't know if God created Abraham because Adam failed. I don't know if I would say that.
Right, that was my question. Or that was my thinking. Is that the way? Yeah.
I mean, Adam he did good things as well, and he had this failure. So he had his, he was punished for it, but I think he was still. I mean, we see later on in life, he was still the kind of the sage of humanity. He was setting people on the right path. Like
Oh, was he?
he was still doing good stuff. He wasn't a bad man.
Okay, but the point you're making is that Rosh Hashanah corresponds to the birth. It's not really the birthday of the world, it's actually the birthday of the creation of man,
Right.
or the celebration, or the recognition of the creation of man. So, okay,
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things about Rosh Hashanah and about the shofar, and what I'm trying to get to tonight is we're gonna speak about some of them, and then we'll see how the way Hasidic thought looks at it, and we'll see how it all kind of comes together.
okay.
The way Hasidic thought looks at it, it's all kind of connected. You're playing with John.
Oh, duck,
Okay, so let's talk about the shofar. So we mentioned before in the Torah, all it says is to be a day of sounding, and it doesn't say what, doesn't say how much. But of course, that's all tradition. We know what God meant because when it was written, it was also explained to us. Yeah.
it's hard.
Okay, Mr. Wilson Alanu. Wilson Alanu.
Oh, should I just put it aside or keep playing the game?
Yeah, I'll just oh, next time. So regarding exactly what to do, how do we make the sound? So that's where we have uh, yeah. That's where we have the tradition, and we know what it is. We know it's a shofar. It has to be a specific kind of sound.
Yeah, the Kia and the Trua
And shivarim,
okay,
3 kinds of sounds. And we also there's a number we try to do 100 sounds throughout the day, or throughout the prayers. So that's kind of given to us by tradition. We know that. Question is, what is the reason? Why are we just blowing the shofar? Like, we want some music. Why are we blowing the shofar?
I know what I learned in Yiddishkeit class.
Okay.
Was that it well, Rosh Hashanah, what I learned was Rosh Hashanah, we think of God as king, and the king judges. What
Right.
does a king do? A king judges.
Right.
So the king is coming to judge. And so the sound of the shofar elicits our emotions that here comes the king. Beware, right?
Right.
He's judging, and so beware, because his judgment, we're worried. So that's what I learned about. It's the announcement of the king coming.
Right.
Kind of.
So that was one of the things I was gonna say.
Okay,
It's really two answers, but before we get to explanation, there's just a general concept is that mitzvahs in general, why do we do mitzvahs? And many mitzvahs have reasons, but we have to always remember that
they're commanded.
exactly it's a command. So before we get to the reason, it's a commandment in and of itself. The reason is kind of extra. This is what God wants. This is what God enjoys, and that's really all there is in a certain sense. The reason is kind of just sort of extra.
Icing on the
Yeah.
cake.
And the truth is, there are different kinds of mitzvahs. Some mitzvahs are more based on reason, and some mitzvahs are kind of we don't have any explanation or we don't understand it at all. There's the different categories of mitzvahs. Yeah. So on the basic level, shofar doesn't, the Torah doesn't give us any explanation, like we saw. It just tells us to blow the shofar without any reason, without anything. However, like you said, there are certain messages or something. We call it a hint to the shofar. So the first thing, like you said, is that it's a time when the king is judging and the king is coming, and this is kind of like a warning sound, right? Is that how you put it? A wake up
An announcement.
announcement. Yeah, an announcement.
Mm.
Yeah, like when the king comes in, they have like a trumpet.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that kind of idea. And then there's a similar kind of idea. What? Similar answer is that it actually inspires us to do teshuvah.
Because it puts some feeling in
Right. They probably spoke about that as well, I imagine. And the Yiddishkeit thought, yeah, careful.
Well, I remember the rabbi saying, it inspires fear in us, but at the same time, we are optimistic that God will forgive us.
Right,
If we do teshuva, but God will forgive us.
right. That's also why Rosh Hashanah is a holiday. We actually celebrate. We have a festive meal
Yeah,
because of exactly that, because we're sure that God is gonna give us a good judgment. Yeah, so at least there's kind of two reasons there. And they're a little different. One reason for the shofar is we're reminding that the king is and the announcement that the king is judging. Another one is that it's there to inspire us I'll tell you the way the Rambam, the Maimonides, the way he described this, the reason of the shofar. He says it's almost like an alarm clock. It's like there to tell you to wake up.
wait, oh, okay, yeah.
Sometimes we're caught up in in our life and we forget about God. We forget about what we're supposed to be doing. We lose focus sometimes. So the shofar is there to wake us up and say, listen, wake up. Remember what's what we're doing here in this world, and refocus. So here's where the Hasidic idea comes in. The Hasidic explanation of the shofar comes in, and this kind of, I think with this, a lot of the different explanations they kind of fit all together. It's kind of like an overarching theme that holds everything together. So this is going back all the way to the Baal Shem Tov. That's how he was known. Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. He was the founder of the Hasidic movement.
Your dad was talking about it.
Yeah, it was his birthday.
On Shabbat.
Yeah, his birthday was on Shabbat. So he didn't the Hasidic movement kind of evolved. When Chabad started a few generations after him. Chabad is only like one.
Don't fall down.
Yeah. Chabad is like one strain of the Hasidic movement. So he was the general Hasidic movement, and Chabad is just one.
Chabad is not. It is not what? The Hasidic movement is not exclusively Chabad.
Right. Yeah. There's many other, and there's some very large groups.
Oh, okay.
Yes. What? Has been? What's that been? Yeah. So the way he explains it is that the shofar really it's a very plain sound. It's plain. It's not sophisticated. It's not like an instrument where there's a lot of notes. It's just very simple. It's just you have opening and you have opening one end and opening another end. You put wind through it, it just makes a sound. We're not changing, we're not playing around with the sound. It's very, very plain. And that so that represents the plain part of our soul.
The what of our soul?
The simple plain part of our soul, which is actually the deepest part of our soul. And sometimes you could have a certain feeling or a certain understanding, which could be sophisticated, but it's not the deepest. Sometimes our deepest self comes out very plain, like you could so that's the idea of a shofar. Something that's more sophisticated would be calling out. Let's see, when we're trying to connect to God, so it would be calling out to God in some sort of, let's say, some sort of prayer, some sort of tune, some sort of song. But the shofar is plain. It's just a simple connection. I want to be with God. I want to connect to my Father in heaven. So that's really the idea of teshuvah, but it's really a different kind of teshuvah. It's not the classic form of teshuvah that we think about. So to describe that a little bit, so I'm gonna move away for a second from the shofar, and so here's another quote from another from the Talmud, or it's a Talmud and from the prophet Isaiah. Huh? Yeah. So the prophet Isaiah says, he says as follows. He says, seek out God when he is found.
Seek out God when he is found.
Yeah. So the question is, when is God found? It sounds like there's some certain times that he's found, certain times where he's not found. It's harder to find him. So the Talmud says that the times that God is found is the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
Okay. Oh, which reminds me, in the Yiddishkeit class, the rabbi did say God was closest to us during those 10 days.
Right. That's where it comes from. It's from this verse. This verse in Isaiah and the Talmud.
Oh, okay.
So that's what Isaiah basically is telling us, during this time of the year, seek out God, reconnect. And that period of time is called the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah.
Say again?
Aseret, the 10 Yemei, the days of Teshuvah. 10 days of
Oh,
Teshuvah.
okay. Aseret Yomim.
Right. Yemei.
Teshuvah. Yomim.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the famous question is, if you do the math, so I can call it the 10 days of Teshuvah. That makes sense, right? Because there's Rosh Hashanah, it's 1 day is 2 days, it's 2 days. Then there's a week in between, and then there's the last day of Yom Kippur. So altogether, that's 10 days. But the Talmud actually says these are the 10 days in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
It doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up because it's not 7 days. Right. If you're counting the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur as well, so then it's not the days in between, it's
Right.
including them. So the way it's explained is that there's kind of two parts, there's two modes, or not modes, there's two elements in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. There's the element of teshuvah, of regular teshuvah that it has, which it shares in common with the other 7 days. So those are 10 days of teshuvah. But then, in addition to that, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur have their own element of a different kind of teshuvah.
You do it differently?
Yeah, it's a kind of a different feeling, a different focus. So
Is that intentional?
yeah,
Is that you're thinking to do that? You're attempting to do that?
yeah. So that's why. So the Talmud is hinting that to us that Rosh Hashanah is counted and it's also not counted at the same time. So it's part of the 10 days, but at the same time we're showing that Rosh Hashanah is unique. It's also not part of the 10 days. So what exactly is that? What are the two forms of teshuvah? So if you look at the difference, if you look at the prayer book in Rosh Hashanah, you won't see much about repentance or sins. It doesn't really come up. We don't talk about that. We talk about making God a king, blowing the shofar, day of judgment. That's what we talk about.
The prayers.
Yeah.
You're talking about the special prayer book. Yeah. What's it called?
Machzor.
Machzor. That's right. Yeah.
Hey.
Okay.
So that's what comes up in Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur is where we talk about the sins, and a lot. We really talk about it a lot. I mean, we really go into detail and we specify every different specific type of sin that we may have done.
Oh yeah, that whole list, and you.
Yeah, and we do it. We read it a bunch of times. So it's over and over. That's definitely a big theme on Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah, you don't see that. So it seems funny to say that Rosh Hashanah is the day of Teshuvah. If you don't pick that up, it doesn't seem like that's what's going on. So really, there's another kind of Teshuvah, and that's exactly the idea of the shofar. Like we said before, it's calling out to God and kind of reconnecting in a kind of like in a less detailed way. Instead of instead of doing Teshuvah in the way where we describe our things that we may have done wrong, specific misdeeds. We think about each one specifically, and we show our
on Yom Kippur, right?
Yom Kippur, or year round in general, or during those other 10 days, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. That's the regular kind of tshuva. But then there's a kind of tshuva which is more general, kind of to zoom out for a second. And what am I doing here? What's my job here in this world? Am I going in the right direction? Like, am I focused on my mission? Am I connecting to God? Am I thinking about God?
So one is, well, Yom Kippur is, yeah, you said zoom out and zoom in, looking at in micro, I guess.
Right.
So what specific behaviors that you have
Yeah.
year where you might have offended another person or God.
Right.
But I think it focuses on offending people, right?
It's
making
both.
them
It's both.
both, okay. But then on Rosh Hashanah, it's not individual behavior. It's not interacting with, well, take that back, but it's not individual behaviors that you did to people,
Exactly.
but it's how am I supposed to be with people? How am I supposed to be in the world?
Right.
At a 20,000 foot level, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of and so that's the idea of teshuvah, right? It's a different kind of teshuvah, and that's the idea of the shofar. Like we said, it's a simple sound. It's unsophisticated. It's a very basic. In a way, it's very basic, but it's very deep. Because it's really we're really questioning like our entire life, everything. Like we're making sure are we focused? Are we doing what we have to do? And that also aligns with the idea of accepting God as king. Because, imagine we say, God, please be our king, but don't tell me what to do.
Yes.
Because it obviously doesn't add up. If we're saying God be our king, we obviously mean that we want you to be our king, and we want you to be our guiding force in our life. We want to do whatever you say. So it's before we even get into the detail, like there's this general attitude and general accepting God as king. God is going to guide us. So in that sense, they kind of come together. All these, that accepting God as king, which happens through the shofar, the idea of teshuvah, which happens through the shofar. It's all kind of the same thing. It's all we're refocusing.
But it goes from macro to micro 10 days later.
Right. 10 days later, and then that's also very important, because you could feel very very dedicated and you can make strong resolutions that I'm gonna be the perfect person this year. But if you didn't describe it, if you didn't give it details, then it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, you didn't define it in detail, the details of it. It kind of remains nebulous. They say when you're trying to accomplish a goal, imagine how that would be. Think about the details of how that would be. And that affects your ability, enhances your ability to achieve that goal. So,
Right. So then with this in mind, this is a little bit connected with what I wanted to talk about last week, but I think it fits right in. So the question is, if you look at the high holidays, right? Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment. God is God judges us to kind of, based on how we're behaving, He gives us a good year, hopefully. And then sometimes we feel like we didn't get a good enough year because maybe we didn't behave good enough. So then we have the Day of Atonement, we have the day of Yom Kippur. That's our kind of our last chance to show God that no, we're really gonna shape up. Please forgive us and actually, and change that judgment and give us seal the judgment, make it even better.
But, and the imagery is gates closing
Right.
at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
So the question is, if you think about it, why is it in that order? Couldn't we just change around the order? Maybe do Yom Kippur first and say, God, I'm actually serious.
Bless you.
I'm sorry about whatever I did wrong the last year. Please wipe that away. Please, don't punish me for that. And instead judge me favorably. And then we could have right after that Rosh Hashanah and God will judge us favorably. And that's it. What's to say? Like, why is it the other way around? Like, why is there a judgment and then change the judgment?
And then what?
And then changing of the judgment or
Oh.
amending the judgment.
I guess, what comes to my mind is that, it gives you time to reflect on what negative judgments might be. And it gives you a chance to change your mind or give you a chance to reflect and
Kind of scares you and you're saying like the judgment already happened. I already have this judgment. So now
if it
I better.
happens to be bad, all is not lost. That's
Right.
all is not lost because you've got so many days, 8 days later, you've got this chance. So don't despair, I guess, is the word. Don't despair because you still have a chance. Because God still wants you to reconnect and make amends. And so He's slow in delivering He may judge, but the delivery of that judgment or the execution of that judgment is slow.
Right.
He's slowing it down so that you can change your mind.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So a little bit of a deeper kind of building on what we spoke about until now, kind of a deeper meaning of the shofar and Rosh Hashanah. So a little bit of a deeper insight into this, and it's another way of looking at it. So we spoke about Rosh Hashanah is Yom Kippur, of course, is the Day of Atonement, but atonement is not only that God is not going to punish us. God is going to say, I'll ignore what you did wrong. That's not only what Yom Kippur is. Yom Kippur is more than that. And that is that, every time we do something wrong, it actually has a certain it has a certain effect, it has a certain tainting on our soul, on our spiritual life. And when on Yom Kippur, in general, when God forgives us, it means that he cleans it off. He actually cleans it off. That whatever blemish, whatever was there, it's not only about the relationship that God could ignore what we did wrong and have a good relationship, but whatever was actually affected, whatever real effect there was, becomes wiped off, becomes changed.
So it's a lifting of a weight. I remember that the rabbi in the Yiddishkeit class talked about you feel renewed or can feel renewed at the end of Yom Kippur. because, and I don't remember that he used that terminology that your sins have been wiped away. He may have, but I don't remember.
Actually, in the Tanya, right? In the Tanya. So there's a whole section about Teshuvah in the Tanya, the 12 chapters. So there, right in the beginning, he said he explains the word of Kippur, right? Yom Kippur, and the actual root word is kapara, which means atonement. He explains that the actual root of the word means to wipe.
Oh, to wipe, clean.
Yeah, to clean something. So Yom Kippur is almost like laundry day, kind of.
Oh,
You think about it. God is cleaning us. It's not just about ignoring the kind of the dirt, but it's actually cleaning the dirt. So that's what happens in Yom Kippur. But the question is, it's kind of like, why does God do that? Because he feels God looks back, and we from both ends, both us and God look back at our deeper connection, and he says, there might have been this, these actions or these transgressions, whatever you want to call it, but at the end of the day, we have such a deep connection, and we're always connected. There's something there that actions can't affect. So
something beyond the action.
right, there's something. It's just about who we are. We have this connection. But when Yom Kippur comes, it's almost it's kind of like you could kind of ask God could kind of ask the question and say, who are you guys? Like, where do you guys come from? Do I know you from somewhere? Like, all year you've been doing whatever, and all of a sudden you just show up and say, like, we're connected. Forgive me, clean me. We're connected. So there has to be some sort of process before that where we actually reconnect, and that's Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, okay.
So that's where Rosh Hashanah is, that time where we reconnect. We say, we have this with a general kind of tshuva where we zoom out and we say, what are we doing here in this world? God is our king. God put us here in the world for a reason, and that's what we're here for. That's the reconnection. And once we have that in place, there's some sort of a separation of a week, I guess, to give us some time. But once we have that in place, then God can say, okay, you guys we're really connected, and we're gonna take care of this. We're gonna clean everything up. So that's kind of the sequence.
But then God gives you a chance. I mean, you don't know that you're going to get another chance. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. But it's every year. So I guess there's a sense that you're not expected to get it all right this year, because you can do better next year and better the year after that. That's the hope. That's the goal.
Right.
That it's not going to happen all just this year.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Yeah, we can't. It's very hard to become perfect in 1 year. It takes.
Well, we're not ever going to be
right,
perfect,
or even anything, right?
But we're just going to be better than we were the previous year, and incrementally improve, but never perfect, but closer to perfection, I guess.
Right.
Than we were before.
And yeah, so one more thought actually about the whole concept of the Day of Judgment, and this is also kind of connected. So according to Hasidic thought, so the Day of Judgment it's a very general judgment. It's kind of like a deep question. So it's almost like God is not only judging us and our actions and our future year, but he's almost like he's judging himself. He's judging his whole I think I mentioned this before. He's judging his whole creation of the world. It says, is this working out?
Because you say that he's going to decide whether to keep the world going
Right,
for another year?
right. So, in other words, God created this is a one of the basic concepts in Hasidic thought is that God created the world for a purpose. What the purpose is that God wants to become present as present as possible in this world
Through the people.
through the people. So the more we bring him through our actions, through our behavior, through mitzvahs, the more we bring him into the world, the more slowly but surely we bring him more and more into the world until when the Mashiach comes, that's really the fulfillment. That's
He's judging the whole world, right? Not just Jews.
right.
He's judging the whole world.
Yeah.
But it's the Jews who are doing teshuvah. It's the Jews who are going through the process involved in Rosh Hashanah and then Yom Kippur. It's not anybody else, but he's judging everybody else. So how do they connect better with God without the process that we are going through, through Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? Do they have a process to go through to do that? I mean, I don't think he's left them out and just,
Right. So
I'm
it's really
judging you, but forget about it. You're doomed. No way,
so it's
no
up
way
to
out of
us.
that.
That's our responsibility to when we interact, whoever we interact with, to bring God's presence, to bring a moral behavior and a recognition of the king, the master of the universe.
Well, I know we're I don't know where I heard the term, but we're the light unto the nations.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the concept, right?
Yeah.
We're the priests of the world. And so, well, we're getting off topic, I guess, but I don't know. The Jewish nation is a priestly nation, not just the Levites and the Kohanim, but all the Jews.
Right.
In the view of the rest of the world, in the context of the rest of the world, the Jewish people are a priestly people. Where was I going with this?
You're wondering about how the rest of the world, how do they Rosh Hashanah?
Yeah, so I don't know if I misunderstood the rabbi when he said it, or when he was trying to say what he was trying to say. But it's for the Jewish people to be priestly, that's their job. And it's for so it's not their job to be a doctor, to be a mechanic, to be whatever, garbage collector, all the different jobs in the world.
That's what I said. Okay.
It's their job to be priestly. And it's for the rest of the world to be the doctors, to be the mechanics, to be the researchers. And I don't know if I misunderstood him what he was trying to say, but that's what I remember. Does that make sense?
I don't know if he might have been talking about the priests, within the Jews. I don't know. I wasn't there when.
Well, right. I know, but it doesn't. That simple view that it doesn't make sense to you. That
I don't know. I would have to hear.
I mean, I remember when your dad was talking about the Tanya one Sunday morning, and he was showing video of I forget his name.
Of the Rebbe, the Sunday
Rebbe.
morning video, yeah.
The Rebbe, and the Rebbe was recommending to one of the men in the video that you go be a doctor. That's your calling. And so it's clear from that that the Jewish people aren't excluded from being doctors or researchers or other things. They're not,
Right.
they have callings similar to that, or, you know.
Right, the Rebbe was actually very,
You know which I'm talking about?
I'm not sure, but I'll tell you that I actually gave a class a couple months ago. It was called A Device for Life. You probably heard about it. It was just the Rebbe's we're going through a lot of the Rebbe's advice to different people about different things. You was nicht? Okay. So one of the things there was about how the Rebbe's approach to how, you know, being in the workplace and being in the workforce is also part of our mission. You know, it's
Oh, because he was saying you could do more good.
Oh, yeah.
Good for
yeah,
Jews to connect with God by being a doctor, a researcher, medical researcher.
right. Yeah, there was different professors, you know, like professors who wore a beard and Jews would come over to them and they were,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
remember
what he was saying, yeah.
yeah, so and the course that we gave, we spoke about how that was one of the reasons why the Rebbe was kind of against retirement. I mean, to a certain extent, because the way he looked at it, we work not only because we need to make a living. That's true also, but we work because that's part of our mission. So if we would just retire, that means we're basically saying, I'm just gonna throw out my mission. Yeah. Yeah, everything in life is another opportunity to bring God into that space.
Yeah.
I forgot where I was going with all of that.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's the day of judgment is every year God on Rosh Hashanah, God kind of rethinks the entire thing. Really questions, 1 second. Why am I creating the world? Is this working out? Is this, is this going somewhere? So well, we got to make sure that it is. You don't want the world to just fall apart. We have to make sure that at least on Rosh Hashanah, that's our time. That's accepting God as king, is saying, you know, God, we're gonna bring you into the world. We're gonna make you the king. We want everyone to realize that God is running the world. We're recommitting to and if we do that properly, God's gonna say, you know what? It looks like this is going in the right direction. I think I'm gonna continue this for another year.
The message of the Elenu.
Is right that we're thank God for choosing us. And
But the second paragraph.
oh yeah,
That the whole world is gonna,
right.
you know. God is one and his name is one. I remember that from the second paragraph.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's the whole theme. Yeah, all the flesh. I think that's in English. All the entire flesh should call out your name, something like that.
Something like that, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's of course that's what happens when Mashiach will come. That's what we're working
Right,
towards.
yeah, that's what I understood. So, and even the wicked would turn to God.
Right.
Seems kind of magical.
And sure enough, this is just to end off with this thought. We have 2 more minutes. So I mean, could go overtime, I'm sure.
Okay.
uh
Wait, exactly what time is it? 8:28. Jeez, time flies.
it's sure enough, it says when Mashiach will come. I forgot which, it might be Isaiah, I'm not sure which prophet it is. He says that on that day, the great shofar will blow.
Is that in the second half of the Passover Seder?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It says
I don't know from where.
Says the great shofar will blow, and then the ones who are lost in the land of Ashur will come, and the ones who are pushed away in Egypt will come, and everyone will bow down to God in Jerusalem. That's the verse, and again, it's connected with the shofar. which I mean it kind of fits in the way we're explaining this whole thing, how the shofar is all about our reconnecting and bringing God into the world,
Oh,
making God as king. So the shofar, continues to do that, and its fullest form. It'll be the great shofar. The great shofar will blow. Kind of
and the final connection will be made.
yes, exactly. And sure enough, after the 6 Day War, the Rebbe, so I wasn't around then, but I don't know if you remember.
I do, I was a kid, 1967, I was in first year of high school,
Okay,
67, 68, 69.
so
So maybe the last year of junior high school. 'Cause I graduated in 70. So,
Oh.
but I remember, yeah,
was
I
it the
remember
talk of
watching
town?
TV and my parents were very worried.
Right.
Yeah,
What was the reaction after the victory, like after the 6 days?
well, uh, I mean, the Israel celebrated, but at the same time, they were frustrated because they were stopped from destroying the Egyptian army. Where they had the Egyptian army at their feet. They wanted to destroy them
Right.
and win the war. And yeah, I guess it was the United States and Russia, because Russia was part of the Cold War, agreed that Egypt was on Russia's side, and Israel, the United States, was on Israel's side. And because of that the fear of the Cold War,
So
the
they had
United
to
States
stop.
didn't want Egypt to be completely destroyed.
Oh, I didn't know this part.
Yeah, they stopped. Israel had the entire Egyptian army surrounded, and they were ready to end the Egyptian army. There'd be no army left. And the United States and Russia, I guess they agreed, hey, let's stop it here. And don't let the Israel destroy what's left of the Egyptian army, which was very frustrating. And then, of course, led to future wars. But what does that mean?
That's just about the doorbell.
Oh,
Might be my wife. Yeah, so just the short thought. The Rebbe would speak about, always talking about the spiritual side of things. So apparently, after the miraculous victory, there's a certain like inspiration. Like Jews were inspired. Jews were
well, because Israel gained Jerusalem.
right.
It was in that war that Israel made Jerusalem
Right.
part of
The Western
Israel.
Wall became suddenly accessible.
Yeah,
So the Rebbe then actually a few months. The 6 Day War was in like May or June, like that time of the year.
what
It
month,
was
but
the beginning of the summer. So
okay.
Rosh Hashanah was just a couple of months after. It was still kind of like in the wake of the war. So on Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbe spoke about this verse about the great shofar, and the Rebbe spoke about how it's not necessarily is it only a physical shofar, not necessarily will it be a big noise, when Mashiach comes, but it's all about the feeling, the inspiration that will
Oh,
be. And the Rebbe says how he in his view, he sees this, it's already starting to happen. He says you look around the world and you see how Jews
back in
are
1967.
are reconnecting, and they're getting re-inspired. This is a fulfillment in a certain sense. This is fulfilling that prophecy of the great shofar being blown.
I hope
Of course, in a small sense, we're still,
a long way from.
we still have a lot to go, but so we're already heading there. We're already getting in that direction. So let's hope that it'll be very soon.
And you hate to think of bad times for us, the Jewish nation. You hate to think of it as having a purpose, right? But then I've heard also, it's only when the Jews, when the world turns against the Jews, that they come back to their religion, to their roots. And so, you know, this, where the world is turning against Israel these latest days. And this country that has been so generous to the Jewish people is turning against the Jewish people. And is that, again, it's hard to think of bad times as having a good purpose.
Right.
But it is that to turn the Jews toward the relationship with God again. Those who haven't been secular.
Right.
Jews separated from their religion. I mean, that, it goes through my mind. I don't.
Yeah, no, it's,
I don't.
you're right. Of course there is purpose, and of course it's tough to say. And if you think about it, God is, you know, God could do all kinds of things, and he could find a way to, you know, to reach people in through good things.
Uh-huh.
Understand.
Oh, hi. Oh, hi.
Right, you finished early.
Hi.
I don't want to disturb the practice.
We're finishing off. We're almost done here.
Yeah, we're done.